The sky was dull and gray, just like the walls of the orphanage he grew up in. Aman stood quietly outside the main gate, holding a few warm boxes of food in his hands. It had been 17 years since he last stood here, and still, the smell of dust and boiled rice drifted in the air like nothing had changed. He was wearing a neat black coat now, expensive shoes. His hair was trimmed perfectly, his beard shaped. But something inside him still felt small, like that scared little boy who used to sleep with a wet pillow at night, pretending it was just sweat, not tears. Aman had turned 25 last week. He had finally made some money through a small startup he'd built from scratch, delivering low-cost meals to low-income neighborhoods. It wasn't big, not yet, but it had grown enough that this month, he could donate his first profit to the one place that shaped him the most. The orphanage door creaked open. A young girl, maybe 16, peeked out and smiled. "You here for donation?" she asked politely. Aman nodded. "Yes, and maybe a visit, if that's allowed." Soon, the staff gathered around him. A few kids clapped when they saw the food. Someone ran inside to fetch the director, Miss Farah, who still worked there after all these years. "Is that Aman?" she gasped when she came outside. Her hair was thinner, glasses thicker, but her voice still had that warmth he remembered. "Oh my God, look at you." She hugged him tightly. For a moment, Aman just stood there. Then slowly, his arms wrapped around her too. Inside, the children were already eating. Aman sat on the edge of a wooden bench, watching them. He smiled. But something inside twisted when he saw how small some of them were. One boy, tiny with messy hair, picked at his food nervously. Aman walked over and offered him a juice box. "You don't have to eat fast," Aman said gently. "There's more if you want." The boy looked up and asked quietly, "Are you a movie star?" Aman laughed. "Not even close." An old janitor stood in the corner, mopping the floor slowly. He wasn't paying much attention. Or maybe he was pretending not to. Aman turned to him and gave a polite smile. "Hi, uncle. Thank you for keeping the place clean." The man looked up for the first time. His eyes were dark and tired. He had a deep scar across his left eyebrow and a limp in his leg. "Look like someone," the old man muttered. Aman tilted his head. "Sorry, you look like I used to," the man said again, then turned and walked out of the room slowly, leaning on his mop. Aman stared at his back. Something about his voice echoed strangely in his chest. Later, Aman sat with Miss Farah in her old office. There were papers everywhere. Photos on the walls, some were new kids, some were old memories. Aman saw a faded group photo taken maybe 20 years ago. He spotted his own tiny face in the corner, smiling with a missing tooth. "You remember him?" Aman asked, pointing at the janitor. "Samir," she said. "Of course, he's been working here since God maybe 25 years now. Quiet man, never married, sleeps in the storeroom sometimes." "He said I looked like him," Aman said softly. Miss Farah paused. Her smile faded. "He says strange things sometimes. Lost a lot in life, but kind soul." That night, before leaving, Aman decided to look around one last time. Something pulled him back toward the storeroom. He didn't know why. He walked through the hallway quietly. No one stopped him. He saw a faint light under the door. The janitor was inside, sitting on a broken plastic chair, staring at an old tin box in his lap. Aman cleared his throat. Uncle Samir looked up. He didn't look surprised, almost like he had been waiting. "You still here?" Samir asked. I wanted to thank you," Aman said awkwardly. Samir nodded, then slowly opened the tin box. Inside was a bunch of old papers, coins, and a black and white photo. He took out the photo and held it in his hand for a moment, then passed it to Aman, looked at it closely. The photo was torn on one edge, but it showed a young man, maybe 17, with messy hair, standing next to a small child whose face had been scribbled out. But the young man's face, his jawline, his nose, even the curve of his ears, it looked exactly like Aman's. His hands began to shake. "Is this you?" Aman whispered. Samir didn't answer. He simply looked down at the ground and said, "I lost a lot in life." The room fell silent. Aman stepped back, his breath caught in his chest. He wanted to ask more but didn't, because right now, all he knew was that he had walked into an orphanage to donate food, but he may have walked into the most important truth of his life. Aman couldn't sleep that night. Even though he had returned home, his mind stayed back in the orphanage. Trapped inside that quiet storeroom, replaying the look on Salmir's face. That photo, it wasn't just an old picture. It felt like a missing piece. Aman had grown up asking himself one silent question over and over. Why was I left behind? He never got an answer. Not from the staff, not from the empty records, and certainly not from life. But now, standing face to face with a man who looked like an older version of him, he felt something deeper than confusion. He felt fear. And hope. The next morning, he returned to the orphanage. No cameras, no food boxes, just him. Miss Ferris seemed surprised to see him again. "Back so soon?" she asked with a soft laugh. "I didn't get to say goodbye yesterday," he replied, but he didn't come to say goodbye. He came for answers. He walked slowly to the back hallway, where the storeroom was. This time he knocked. No one replied. He pushed the door gently and peeked inside. It was empty. The old plastic chair was there, the mop bucket, the torn curtain. But Samir wasn't. He usually cleans the playground around this time, a small boy whispered from behind him. Aman smiled politely and walked outside. Sure enough, he saw Samir limping across the dusty yard, dragging a broom behind him. Aman walked up slowly. Need help? He asked. Samir didn't stop sweeping. You're not a boy anymore. I have questions, Aman said honestly. Paused. We all do. Amon's voice lowered. Why did you say I look like you? Samir stopped. He leaned on the broom and looked toward the sky. Because you do. Did you work here when I was brought in as a baby? Aman asked. Samir nodded slowly. Yes. I was already here. Then do you remember how I came? Samir sighed. Some things are better left buried. No, Aman said, stepping closer. Not this. The silence between them stretched long and heavy. Samir looked at him and whispered, What do you want from me? I want the truth, Aman said. For the first time in my life, Samir shook his head. Truth. Hurts. I've lived without it for 25 years. That hurt more. Samir dropped the broom. His hands trembled. He walked to a nearby bench and sat down, his body folding into itself like a man carrying too many memories. I was young, he began. 17. Stupid, in love with someone I wasn't allowed to love. Aman sat beside him, silent. She was from another religion. Her family found out. She was taken away. We met one last time. She was crying. Said she didn't want to lose me. 2 months later, she sent me a letter. She was pregnant. She begged me to come. Samir's voice cracked, but I was scared. I didn't go. He rubbed his face with his hands, shaking. Then I heard. She gave birth alone. A boy. She named him and left him at an orphanage because no one would accept the child. Her family forced her. She ran away afterward. I don't know where she went. Maybe she died. Aman felt a lump in his throat. His hands clenched into fists. Samir looked at him, tears in his eyes. You were that boy. Aman froze. I came to the orphanage days later. I saw you. You were so small. I couldn't even hold you properly. But I stayed. I started working here, cleaning floors, fixing taps, just to stay close. I told myself maybe one day I'd find the courage to tell you. But you grew up, and I stayed afraid. Amon's voice cracked. Why didn't you tell me when I was a kid? When I cried alone, when I needed a father the most? I thought, you were better off not knowing, Samir said. You hated your parents for leaving you. I didn't want you to hate me too. Aman turned away. His heart was beating so loud he couldn't hear anything else for a moment. He got up and walked away without another word. That night, Aman went home and locked himself in his room. He pulled out the old folder Miss Farah once gave him, his orphan file. It had his baby photo, a few nurse notes, and the first name they gave him, Baby Aman, left at gate. No family. He stared at that sentence for hours. Was Samir telling the truth? Was he really his father? Why now? Why wait? He couldn't sleep. The questions spun like storms inside his mind. But one thing felt real. The pain in Samir's eyes wasn't fake. The next morning, Aman returned to the orphanage again. Miss Farah was in the courtyard. You're becoming family again. She smiled. I need something, he said. She led him to the old storage room filled with dusty cabinets. She gave him a key and left him alone. He opened the drawer labeled 1999 Infants. He searched file after file, until finally he found it his own. The original, first written by the nurse. Male infant. Estimated 3 days old, no marks. Number, birth certificate. Found at front gate, wrapped in gray shawl. No note. Identified by nurse as healthy. Staff named him Aman, but something new caught his eye. At the bottom, a name had been scribbled faintly under visitor who first asked about child. The name read, Samir Khan. Aman stared at the ink until his eyes burned. He stumbled outside with the file still in his hands. Samir was fixing a pipe near the back garden. Aman walked straight up to him. He didn't say anything. He just held out the file. Samir looked at it, looked at Aman. Aman didn't go back to the orphanage for a few days. He stayed home, barely eating, barely sleeping. The world around him moved on. His team messaged him about meetings, clients, and deliveries, but his heart wasn't in it. How could it be, when the ground beneath his whole life had shifted? The man he thought was a stranger had known him for 25 years. The father he thought he never had been just steps away, mopping floors, patching walls, watching him from afar. It didn't make sense, and it didn't erase the pain either. He sat on his childhood bed, staring at the old photo Samir had given him. The face in the picture was haunting, young, lost, hopeful, and next to that boy, a child's face had been scratched out like someone wanted to erase the past itself. On the third day, Aman decided to do what he had been avoiding. He picked up his keys, drove across the city, and went to the place he swore he'd never return, the government records office. A tall building, with peeling paint and endless queues. He waited for hours. Finally, he was called in. The man behind the desk yawned as he flipped through papers. You want information on a child left in 1999? Yes, Aman said firmly. I was that child. The clerk looked up, surprised. And you want what? Exactly anything, Aman replied. Any detail about who brought me? Was there a camera? Was anyone seen? The man sighed. We don't keep camera records that far back, but we do have visitor logs. Rarely complete. You got lucky someone wrote a name. He slid out a brown folder and opened it. He pointed at a small handwritten note. Aman leaned in. It read, Samir Khan visited orphanage 3 times in the week. Following the child's arrival, no claim filed. No legal papers submitted. So he did come, Aman whispered. The clerk nodded. He came, but never took you. Maybe he was scared. Or not ready. That sentence hit Aman harder than he expected. He left the office feeling both heavy and hollow. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low, he stood outside the orphanage once again. The sky was the same dull gray as the day he first came back. This time, Samir was sitting quietly near the old water tank, feeding a few birds. Aman walked toward him. Neither of them spoke at first. Finally, Aman sat beside him. I went to the records office. Samir didn't look surprised. And what did you find? That you came back again and again. Samir nodded. I did. Then why didn't you take me? Aman asked. His voice was soft, but his chest was burning. Samir swallowed hard. I wanted to. God knows I did. But I was nobody. No job, no money, no support. I had just started working here, and I didn't want you to suffer. With me, I thought, maybe here, you'd get food, a place to sleep. You could have told me later, Aman said. I was ashamed, Samir replied. Every time I saw you cry as a child, it killed me. But I stayed silent. I told myself it was for your good. Was it? Aman, whispered Samir, looked away. No, it was for mine. Aman's eyes welled up, but he didn't let the tears fall. He wasn't a child anymore. But deep down, the little boy inside him still wanted to scream. I hated not knowing, Aman said. I hated birthdays. I hated seeing other kids go home for holidays. I felt empty, like I didn't belong anywhere. I know, Samir said quietly. I saw it, and you still said nothing. Samir nodded, his face crumbling. Because I didn't think I deserved to be your father. Aman stood up suddenly, angry, confused, and lost all at once. You could have been. All I ever wanted was someone to call family. I would have given anything for that. Samir didn't answer. He just looked down at his old scarred hands. Aman turned and began walking away again. But Samir called out, there's something else. Aman stopped. What? Samir pulled out a small folded paper from his pocket. It was worn and yellowed with age. He held it out. Aman hesitated, then took it. It was a letter, written in neat, feminine handwriting. My dearest Aman, it began. If you ever read this, it means somehow you found your way back. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for leaving you. I wanted to keep you, hold you, raise you, but the world wouldn't let me. They called you shame, but to me, you were everything. Your father didn't abandon you. He loved you in silence. And I prayed for you every night. I hope you grew into a kind man. I hope you smile often, and I hope one day you forgive us. Your mother. Aman read it twice. Then again. His hands trembled. Where did you get this? He asked. She gave it to me before she left. Samir said. I never opened it. Not until I saw you again as a grown man. What happened to her? I don't know, Samir said. She disappeared. No phone, no trace. I searched, but she was gone. Aman clutched the letter to his chest. It felt like hearing her voice for the first time. Soft, loving, real. He sat back down. Beside Samir, they didn't talk after that. They just sat there, side by side, as the evening air wrapped around them. Maybe the past couldn't be changed, but maybe, just maybe, it could be forgiven. Suddenly, a group of kids ran past them laughing loudly. One little girl stopped and waved at Aman. Come play. Aman smiled. A real one this time. He stood up and turned to Samir. I'm not ready to call you father yet. Samir nodded slowly. I understand, but I don't want to keep running away either. Samir looked up at him. In his tired eyes, something lit up, something gentle. You don't have to, he said. Aman walked toward the children. Behind him, Samir picked up the letter from the bench where Aman had set it down for a moment. He held it tightly, like it was all he had left of a woman he once loved, and a son he almost lost forever. But he hadn't lost him. Not completely. Aman couldn't stop thinking about the letter. He kept it in his wallet, folded carefully like a treasure. Sometimes, at night, he would pull it out and read the words again, hoping to hear her voice in the silence. It was the only thing he had of his mother. No photos, no memories, just a letter filled with pain, love, and guilt. But it meant everything. It was proof that he was wanted. Even if life had torn them apart, he started spending more time at the orphanage, not just to see Samir, but for the children. He brought meals, books, and sometimes just sat with them and listened to their stories. He saw himself in their eyes, the longing, the questions, the quiet strength. One afternoon, he was sitting with a group of children drawing on the floor, when Miss Farah walked in, holding an old register in her hands. I thought you might want to see this, she said gently, handing it to him. Aman opened the cover. It was one of the earliest record books from the year he was found. Pages filled with names, dates, notes in blue ink. He turned slowly until he found his own entry. Infant male, found wrapped in a gray shawl, no identifying note. Left at main gate, estimated 3 days old. He traced the letters with his finger. Then, just below it, he saw something strange. There was a faint scribble in red ink, erased and crossed out but still visible if he looked closely. Child resembles Escon. His breath caught. He looked up at Miss Farah. Did you write this? She shook her head. No, that was Sister Miriam. She was a nurse here back then. She left years ago. Do you know where she is now? Emin asked, standing up suddenly. Miss Farah thought for a moment. Last I heard, she moved to a village in Multan after her retirement. Why? Emin closed the register slowly. Because I think she saw something no one else did that evening. Aman called in a favor from a journalist friend who had contacts in local records. Within hours, he had a phone number. The next morning, he drove for 6 hours to a small town on the outskirts of Multan. It was dusty, quiet, and peaceful. Birds chirped. Cows walked lazily across narrow roads. He found the house a small white cottage with a wooden door and potted plants outside. He knocked. A gentle-faced woman in her 60s opened the door. Yes, are you Sister Miriam? He asked. She smiled kindly. I was. A long time ago. You must be one of the children. Aman nodded. I was left at the orphanage in 1999. My name is Aman. Her smile faded slightly. Yes, I remember you were tiny. Always quiet. I found something you wrote, he said in the register. She blinked slowly. You found the note? Yes, Aman said. Did you know something? She opened the door wider. Come inside. Inside, the house smelled like old books and jasmine tea. She poured him a cup without asking. They sat on a soft rug near the window. She looked at him for a long moment before speaking. When you were brought in, I was the one who cleaned you up, she said. You had a small bruise on your foot, like someone had carried you too tight, but you were healthy, strong. And then 2 days later, a young man came to visit. Tall, scared, silent. Samir, Aman said. She nodded. He looked at you through the glass. Didn't say a word, just stared. His eyes were full of something I couldn't name. I asked if he was your father. He didn't answer, but I saw how his hands shook. Why did you write that in the file? Aman asked softly. Because I knew, she said. A mother knows when a father looks at his child. He didn't speak, but his eyes said everything. I wrote it down, but someone told me to erase it. They didn't want speculation in the record, so I crossed it out. Aman felt his throat tighten. Do you know anything about my mother? She shook her head slowly. I only saw her once, a week after you were brought in. She came in the evening, wearing a scarf that covered most of her face. She stood outside the gate and watched you play with a soft cloth ball. She didn't come in, she just watched and cried. I went out to talk to her. She gave me a letter. She said, please give this to him when he's old enough. Then she walked away. The smoke spread fast, too fast. Within seconds, the calm courtyard turned into chaos. Children were screaming. The younger ones clung to the older ones, their faces pale with fear. The flames burst through the kitchen windows, lighting up the sky with an orange glow. Aman froze for half a second. Then he ran. He didn't think. He didn't speak. He just ran straight toward the fire. Get the kids out, Miss Farah shouted, her voice cracking. Use the back exit. Samir was already inside. No hesitation. He had rushed in the moment he heard the first scream. Aman pushed his way through the crowd and followed. The heat hit him like a wall. Smoke filled his lungs instantly. He covered his mouth with his sleeve and ducked low. Samir, he shouted. No answer. He reached the hallway near the kitchen. The flames had spread to the ceiling. Sparks rained down like angry stars. Then he heard it, a small, desperate cry. Help. Aman turned sharply. Near the storage closet was a little boy, maybe 6 years old, stuck behind a broken shelf. The fire had melted the plastic around him. Aman ran forward, coughing hard. Hold on, he yelled. The boy was crying, frozen in fear. Aman yanked the shelf away with both hands, burning his fingers. He scooped the boy into his arms and turned to leave when a wooden beam fell inches away, blocking the path. He turned back. The hallway was closing in, flames everywhere. Then through the smoke he saw a figure limp toward him. Samir coughing, weak, but alive. There's another exit near the laundry room. Samir shouted, go. What about you? Aman cried. Samir coughed again. There are 2 more kids inside. Without waiting, he turned around and disappeared into the smoke. Aman's heart slammed against his chest. He ran with the little boy in his arms, following the path Samir pointed to. He kicked open a side door and burst outside into clean air. Staff members grabbed the boy and helped Aman lie down. He gasped for breath. Samir still in there. He choked. Miss Farah covered her mouth in horror. No, before anyone could stop him. Aman jumped to his feet and rushed back toward the building. A firefighter tried to block him. It's too dangerous. There's someone inside. Aman screamed. He's my father. The word slipped out before he even realized it, but it was the truth now, and he wasn't going to lose him again. The firefighter shouted something into his radio. Aman slipped past and ran back into the smoke. It was darker now, hotter. He held his breath, eyes burning. Samir, he yelled. Where are you? A loud crash, a scream. Then Aman spotted him. Samir was on the floor, his leg trapped under a piece of fallen roof. One child was clinging to his side. Another was unconscious nearby. Amon ran and grabbed the smaller child first, dragging him out of the heat. Then he returned for the second one. He carried him on his back. Go, Samir said. Leave me? I'm not leaving you. Amon shouted. I didn't come this far to walk away now. He threw his full weight onto the beam. It didn't move. Again, nothing. He looked at Samir. Hold on to me, he said. Can you move at all? Samir shook his head. My leg. I think it's broken. Amon looked around wildly. Then he spotted a long piece of pipe. He jammed it under the beam like a lever and pushed. It groaned, shifted just enough. Samir pulled his leg out, screaming in pain. Amon grabbed his arm and threw it around his shoulder. We're getting out of here, he said through gritted teeth. They limped toward the exit together, coughing, gasping. The walls cracked behind them. Wood snapped. The roof above moaned like it was ready to collapse. Just as they reached the door, a fireman burst in, grabbed Samir from Amon's side, and pulled them both out. The world exploded in sound and light as the roof caved in seconds later. Outside, children cried and hugged each other. Miss Farah wept. Ambulances arrived. Fire trucks roared. But they were alive, all of them. Samir was rushed to the hospital. Amon sat in the hallway for hours, hands black with ash, clothes torn. He didn't care. He didn't move. A nurse finally walked up. He's stable. He'll need surgery for the leg, but he'll live. Amon nodded, eyes full. He stepped into the room. Samir was asleep, hooked up 2 wires, an oxygen mask on his face, but there was peace there. Amon pulled up a chair and sat beside him. You saved them, he whispered. You saved us all. He reached for Samir's hand and held it gently. The same hand that once changed his diaper, cleaned his plate, tucked him in when he thought no one was looking. The same hand that had never let go even in silence. Amon stayed there all night. At dawn, the sunlight peeked through the hospital. Curtains. Amon looked out at the city, waking up, and knew something had changed. He had walked into a fire and come out with more than survival. He had come out with a father and a purpose. The next day, the media picked up the story. Unknown man risks life to save orphan children. Janitor hailed as hero in orphanage fire. Reporters gathered, people donated money. And Amon made a promise to every camera, every microphone, every child listening. No child in this country, he said with tears in his eyes, should ever feel unloved, unwanted, or go to bed hungry. I'm starting something new. A foundation, not in my name but in his. He pointed to the photo of Samir on the hospital bed because heroes don't always wear suits. Sometimes they wear old shoes and carry a mop. The world listened. But just when Amon thought the story had ended, man arrived at the hospital reception with an envelope in his hand. I need to speak with Amon, he said. I have something that changes everything. Amon looked up from the hospital bench, where he had been sitting all night. His eyes were tired, but his heart was awake. The nurse walked over and pointed gently. Someone's asking for you. Amon stood slowly and turned to see an older man in a simple gray coat, holding an envelope tightly in both hands. His face was nervous but kind. Are you Amon? He asked softly. Yes. The man swallowed. I need a moment. I think I owe you a truth. Amon hesitated, then nodded. They walked outside the hospital into the quiet garden. The man handed him the envelope. Before you open this, he said, let me explain. Amon stared at him. Who are you? The man took a deep breath. My name is Hamid. I used to run the orphanage 28 years ago. I was there the day you arrived. Amon's heart skipped a beat. You, were there. Yes, I remember your mother. Her name was Shazia. She was weak, crying. She begged me to take you in, said she couldn't keep you safe. She left without saying much else. But before she walked out that door, she gave me this letter. Hamid gently tapped the envelope in Amon's hand. I never delivered it. I didn't know if it mattered after all these years. But when I saw your face on the news, I knew the truth needed to come out. Amon's fingers trembled. He opened the envelope. Inside was an old faded letter written in delicate handwriting. My dearest Amon, if you're reading this, it means you've come looking for the truth. I'm sorry I had to leave you that day. You were only a baby. I had nothing, money, no support, no safety. Your father and I were separated by fate, not by choice. His name is Samir. He never knew where we went. He never abandoned you. I did what I thought would keep you alive. But one day, I hope you'll find him. I hope you'll forgive us both. And I hope you'll understand, you were always loved. Always your mother. Shazia. Amon's eyes filled with tears, his knees weakened. His breath hitched in his chest. Samir, double quotes, he whispered. He didn't know. Hamid shook his head. He spent years looking, but he was poor. He never had the resources. Eventually, he gave up, but not on you. He stayed at the orphanage. He never left. He waited in silence. He hoped, maybe one day, you'd come back. Amon covered his mouth, trying to breathe. The weight of years, of loneliness, of confusion, all of it crashed down. And now, everything made sense. Why Samir looked at him that way. Why he stood outside the hall when Amon cried alone. Why he saved him in the fire without thinking twice. He's my real father, Amon said, barely believing his own voice. Hamid nodded. Yes, and I think he always knew somewhere deep inside. Amon looked back toward the hospital. He's sleeping now, but I need to tell him. I need him to hear it from me. That evening, Samir opened his eyes slowly. Aman sat beside him, holding his hand. You saved them, Aman whispered. You saved me. Samir tried to smile through the pain. I only did what any father would do. Aman froze. Samir paused, realizing what he had just said. His eyes widened. You ... you know. Aman nodded. I do, I know everything now. Samir, eyes filled. He turned his face away. I'm sorry, Aman, I should have told you. I just didn't know how. I thought you'd hate me for not finding you. Aman leaned closer. I don't hate you. I never could. You waited for me your whole life. You stayed close even when I didn't know. You gave me love of it in silence. And now, I want to give it back. Samir closed his eyes, tears rolling down his cheeks. Aman held his hand tighter. We're not broken anymore, he said. We're a family now. Word spread quickly. Donations flooded in. The story of the janitor turned hero and the son who forgave him touched hearts around the world. Within 2 weeks, Aman registered a new nonprofit, the Samir Foundation. Its mission: no child should ever sleep hungry or unloved, ever again. He used the first round of donations to repair the orphanage, completely new kitchen, new beds, fresh uniforms. The children who had once gone to sleep cold now had warm food and warm hugs. Aman sat frozen, the old police report trembling in his hands. He scanned the yellowed page again and again, hoping he had read it wrong. But there it was, his mother's name, Shazia, and beneath it, under the section marked Witness Statement, the signature Samir. What is this? Aman finally asked, voice barely above a whisper. Samir looked away, his hands gripping the edge of the bed. I was going to tell you one day, but I kept running from it, just like I ran from her. Aman's heart pounded. What do you mean, Samir? Sighed deeply Shazia and I. We were young, we fell in love, but her family hated me. I was just a street musician then, no money, no future, just dreams. They wanted her to marry someone with status. When she refused, they locked her away. For weeks I couldn't find her. Then one night, she appeared at my door alone, crying, and pregnant with you. Aman listened, his breath shallow. She told me we had to run, that her brothers were planning something. They had threatened to make you disappear if she didn't agree to the marriage. We packed what little we had and ran to the next city, but ... they found us. Samir paused, his voice cracked. That night, they came to the lodge where we were hiding. I was out getting food. When I returned, the room was empty. She was gone. You were gone. Aman's fingers tightened. Around the paper, I filed a missing person report the next morning. I told the police everything, her name, her family, the threats. But no one helped. They said there was no proof, no case. Days passed. I searched every hospital, every shelter. Finally, I went to the orphanage, and there, there you were, wrapped in the same blanket she used to carry. Aman's throat burned with emotion. So you knew it was me. Not right away, but I recognized the cloth. Then your eyes. They were hers. I asked the staff about the woman who left you, but they said she never gave her name. I was afraid that if I told them who I was, they'd take you away. Her family still had power. I was just a man with no name. So, I stayed. I worked as a cleaner. I kept my head down, but I stayed close. I couldn't be your father in the open, but I could be your shadow, your quiet protector. Aman's eyes welled with tears. His heart broke not from anger, but from the weight of silence his father had carried for nearly 3 decades. Why didn't you tell me when I was older? Samir looked away. Because by then, you hated me. I thought maybe it was better you never knew. That maybe you'd live better without my truth. Aman shook his head. No, I needed you. I needed answers. All those years I thought I was thrown away, but you were right there. Samir reached out and held Aman's hand. I'm sorry, for all of it, for not being brave enough, for not fighting harder. I failed her, and I failed you. Aman leaned in, his voice soft. No, you didn't fail. You saved me in every way that mattered. For a long time, they just sat together, father and son, bound now not by secrets but by truth. But the questions didn't stop there. Aman began digging deeper. If his mother's family had threatened to harm them, what had really happened to her? He returned to the city where she had last been seen. He met with old neighbors, police officers, even journalists. Most doors were closed. Some faces turned away in fear. But one woman, a nurse at a clinic from those years, finally spoke. I remember her, she said, showing him an old file. She came here one night, bruised and scared, said she had no one. She asked us to help her give birth in secret. We did. But the next morning, she was gone. We never saw her again. Aman took photos of the record. He knew then his mother had been alive after giving birth. But something had happened after that, and someone had covered it up. Back at the foundation office, Aman gathered his team. We're not just feeding children anymore, he said. We're finding the truth. Not just mine, but for every child who was abandoned, silenced, or erased. He launched a new campaign. Where did they go? It was a national call for anyone with stories of missing mothers, lost children, or unexplained adoptions to come forward. Thousands responded. One story stood out, a girl named Farah from a nearby village. She was now in her 30s. Her story matched many parts of Aman's: a forced marriage, a secret pregnancy, a sudden disappearance. Her brother had been the local show at the time, just like in his mother's case. Aman drove to meet her. I think your story and mine are connected, he said. Farah looked at him, then pulled out a small black and white photo. I don't know if this means anything to you, but when I ran from home, I took this. Amon's heart stopped. It was a photo of two young women, Farah, and someone who looked exactly like the old photo he had of his mother. That's her, he whispered. Shazia. Farah covered her mouth. Then she really didn't run alone. Aman nodded. They tried to erase her. But I'm going to find the rest of her story. I have to. That night, Aman returned home, his mind full of questions and fire. He sat beside Samir again. Baba, do you think she could still be alive? Samir's eyes filled with hope and fear. I don't know. But if anyone can find her, it's you. Just then Amon's phone buzzed. It was a voice message. He hit play. A woman's voice whispered through the speaker. You don't know me, but I know about your mother. She didn't die. She was taken. Amon stood up, shaking. Samir looked at him, alarmed. Aman held the phone tighter as the voice message ended. The woman's voice was calm but serious. She didn't die. She was taken. He replayed it 3 more times, memorizing every word, every breath, every pause. Samir looked at him, eyes wide. Who is she? Do you recognize the voice? Aman shook his head. No, but she knows something. I can feel it. He immediately called the number, but it rang and went straight to voicemail. He tried again, no answer, just silence. He sat down at his desk and opened his laptop. She used a private number. But maybe I can track the location of the message, he muttered. Within an hour, with help from a friend in cybersecurity, Aman traced the source to a remote village 3 hours away. Samir stood up. I'm coming with you. No, Baba, Aman said softly. You've done enough. I need you here. If something happens, someone has to keep the foundation running. Samir nodded, reluctantly. Then promise me. Go alone. Aman called Shifa, his closest friend and fellow volunteer. She had been by his side since the orphanage days, and he trusted her like family. She agreed to come without question. By dawn, they were on the road. The village was quiet, hidden in the hills, the kind of place where time had stopped. Children ran barefoot in the fields, and elders sat outside their mud homes, watching strangers with suspicion. Aman showed the locals a printout of his mother's photo. Have you seen this woman? Most shook their heads, but one old woman paused. She stared at the photo a little too long, then whispered, You should talk to Zulika. She lives in the yellow house near the well. Aman found the house. He knocked. A frail woman with silver hair opened the door. Her eyes widened the moment she saw the photo in his hand. Come in, she said. Her voice, it was the same voice from the message. Amon's heart raced. He stepped inside, and Shifa followed. You called me, he said. You said, my mother didn't die. Zulika sat slowly. Yes, but I must be careful. There are still people who don't want this truth to come out. Aman nodded. Please, tell me everything. Zulika looked at the photo again. Shazia was brought here years ago. She was not dead. She was broken. Her family staged the whole thing. They told the world she ran away and died in shame, but in reality, they locked her away. In a hidden room, in a house near the city. I was the nurse they hired to keep her quiet. Aman couldn't breathe. You saw her. After I was born, Zulika nodded. She cried every night for her baby, but they told her you had died in childbirth, that your body was buried in a nameless grave. She didn't believe it. She screamed. She stopped eating eventually. They drugged her mind. I begged them to stop, but they were powerful, rich. They said she had embarrassed the family name, and then she disappeared. I heard she was sent to a private hospital under a false name. Aman leaned forward. Where do you remember the hospital? Zulika hesitated, then slowly reached into a drawer and pulled out an old journal. Inside, a page had the words, Sahar Psychiatric Facility Room 12 scribbled in faded ink. That's where they sent her, Zulika whispered, but you must be careful. That hospital is not what it seems. It's where they hide people, not heal them. Aman didn't wait. He and Shifa drove straight to the city and arrived at the gray abandoned-looking building by evening. The signboard was rusted, the gate half broken. It looks closed, Shifa said. Aman didn't answer. He pushed the gate open and walked inside. The place was eerily silent. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling, paint peeled off the walls. But as they reached a long corridor marked East Wing, Aman saw a faded room sign, Room 12. He rushed to it. The door creaked as he pushed it open. It was empty dust. An old bed, a broken chair. But then, on the wall, scratched faintly in the plaster, were 3 words. Aman, my son. He fell to his knees. His hands touched the wall, tears falling silently. She was here, he whispered. Shifa crouched beside him. She never gave up on you. Behind the bed, they found a small tin box hidden beneath the floor tile. Inside it were torn pages of a diary, written in shaking handwriting. It was her